You have to kind of get it closer to your mouth.
Closer. Can you hear me now? Everybody hear me now? Okay. First of all, you have two handouts related to the county fee-for-service program. One of them is the PowerPoint presentation, but then we also sent you earlier a spreadsheet that actually is a demonstration of the numbers. This is not, we're not bringing to you approval of the rates. This is the concept of the model. But I did drop in second interim numbers, so you can see how it's calculated. Okay, first of all, the objectives for the fee-for-service for the county model is to determine the appropriate cost per service for county operating program, to provide transparency in budgeting and reporting of actual expenditures and revenues, and this was the objective of the FICMAT study. Also as well that we were able to show by program the actual costs and the revenues associated with the program served. And then also the third objective was to create a mechanism that would determine the overall effect of fee-for-service rates and revenue throughout the year as the service level adjusted. As kids were coming in and out of the program, we can see if the rates that were approved earlier in the year were still supporting the program throughout the year. Okay, assumptions going into this model was, first of all students served in the county program are non-resident. I realize this is kind of a given, but that is the difference between the county model and a district provider program. They have to determine the cost of non-resident students versus resident students. So I just wanted to make sure you understood that we are different in our models. Program costs are exclusive to West End region only because we do have two other multi-district SEPAs that also are on a fee-for-service basis. I wanted to ensure everyone that we do keep the costs separate between the two. Central administration costs are allocated across all student services programs based on teacher FTE. Central office is the assistant superintendent of student services and her staff. And the programs that are operated within the county program, juvenile hall, community day, community school, independent study, and special education programs within all three regions. This central office, the assistant student staff, and her secretary are spread across all of those programs. And by the FTEs, by the teachers that are in each program. Support costs unique to early start, first class, and community day school are direct charge to the program and not included in the allocation formula. We can get into that more when we get into how costs are allocated across each program. Those three programs stand alone. They, because they are unique and supported by other avenues, any allocation of administrative staff and facilities are direct charge to those programs. ADA is reported to CDE by district of residence. Some of this, your no revenue limit funding is based on reported ADA multiplied by the district of residence revenue limit, base revenue limit amount, and the district's current year deficits for LEAs is also applied to that revenue limit. In the past couple of years, we've had a different deficit factor for county offices versus districts, and the revenue limits that support special education is using the district's deficit factor, not the county offices. Preliminary program budgets are built on the assumption of an average caseload of 10 students per self-contained classroom. This is more when we go to develop budgets for preliminary and set the fees. We have to have some kind of determination on when to decrease or increase staffing, and it's based on 10 students per self-contained. Program descriptions are included in your handout. On this, the handout is a spreadsheet. The second sheet describes the individual programs and the assumptions for each program. Okay, now then looking at the spreadsheet, there is a different fee for service rate for STC, preschool STC, community day STC, community day RSD, low incidence itinerant, intensive autism, one-to-one AIDS, related service or DIS program, and then the first class in the infant fee-for-service rate. Those are supported currently with the infant and state funding. It's still under a unit-based model. And then also first class, there's 2 federal grants that support that. So there's currently no fee-for-service rates associated with fee-for-service. Okay, first of all, how we have gone about separating the costs is it's all goal and function driven, and all the way down to the 4th digit. This, to the business people, will be more, but we even take the 4th digit within the function and have applied numbers so we can dissect the cost across the whole program to be able to compare actual expenses by program. There's definitions of goals and functions here for those who need definition. And then across your spreadsheet, the function is at the top. In each column, it tells you which function is being used and how we pull out costs associated with that column. Okay, also on the section of the expense, there's a line for, it's actually line 12 for allocated costs. Allocated costs are determined by and have been assigned functions 2100, 2700, and 8100. And the costs are, as I said earlier, allocated across program by FTEs, but then this is kind of difficult to explain. When across student services, they are just put into one fee-for-service category, and then how we distribute them across SDC, preschool, low incidence, intensive autism is by percentage of expenditures. So each category gets a portion of allocated costs. Support costs associated with community day school are direct charge to community day, SDC, and RSP. Again, community day school, those kids that are being served in SDC or RSP class in community day are community day first and special ed second. So they are assigned the allocated cost of the community day itself, not special education. So there's, when you look at the spreadsheet, there are no additional allocated costs assigned to community day school programs. And it's the same with early start and first class. And also any allocated costs that are in community day, first class, or early start that have a 21, 27, or 8100 function are not included in the allocation across the other programs. They're excluded. Revenue. Property tax, federal local assistance, AB 602 are not included in this as revenue because what we're trying to determine is what fee-for-service is needed in that program. If you remember the distribution spreadsheet of your AB 602, the fee-for-service is actually made up of all 3 of these funding sources. So it's not included on this model. But revenue limit is, and it's distributed across programs that generate ADA, and then also grants are included, grant funding is included for those programs that are supported or generated. The final determination of the excess cost, the fee-for-service rate is basically the excess cost of that program. The expense of that program minus the revenue that has been allocated or assigned to that program. Then the total excess cost is divided by the number of services, and the services are put on here with the latest services from the spreadsheet you see from the SOPA. And then on line 34, it actually determines the excess cost per service. In other words, the fee-for-service rate that would be associated with that program. And then line 35 below it, just as a demonstration in this one, I have added what the current rate structure is for that particular program. Line 36 is the difference between the determination of the new rate and then what we currently have as rates. You'll note over in, we have a new category, low incidence itinerant. It's all a new rate. We did not have that category in the past, so there was no rate structure for that. And then line 37 and 38 is the revenue. 37 is the average generated, and 38, and then 39 is the difference. So under this, again, we're not establishing rates with this, it's the concept. But there would be an increase in cost on this, but there has been, for some time, that has been supported by ending balance from the prior year during budget time. When actual and expenditures fall out, which has created a ending balance, and so the program has been actual deficit spending for some time, but supported by the ending balance. Any questions? Wow, that was a lot of work.
We do have some questions, comments.
I have just a quick question. Maybe Jared know this, but I'm not sure why the property tax and
Microphone. All right.
I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a new process where the property tax revenue as well as the federal local assistance is listed in the revenue? Because our funding model does show your funding based on your actual fee-for-service revenue that comes in, but you're just funded through those other sources.
But if you look at your fee-for-service when on your distribution, it determines the fee-for-service, but then that fee-for-service is divided by 3 separate funding resources: property tax, local assistance, and ABC.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some comments from the audience. Let's see, no Mendoza?
Excuse me, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Mrs. Mendoza can go and we'll get through everything. Go ahead, Mrs. Mendoza.
I'd just like to say first, as a parent, on the second page, under Other, can you please remove the 20 days? That is a pure violation of faith, okay? Because if a child regresses enough, they can have 60 days of extended school year. And that's basically what you're talking about. And I've been through that, and my son has received that. It is not 20 days. You cannot put 20 days. You cannot put 5 days. It is up to the IEP, okay? Now I'm speaking as a board of trustees. You're putting the school districts at financial liability by putting the 20-day there. So if you could just take that out, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendoza. We also had something. Go ahead, Mrs. Brown.
Hi, I don't know who was just speaking there. What's her name? And
Janet
are you the
Crafty.
CFO?
No, I'm program manager of the Trump business.
Okay. Well, I have a personal interest in financial statements and analyzing and becoming more acquainted with them. And just recently, I've been online trying to pull up some information regarding the budget and financial statements, the income statements, and I just want to know where can I retrieve the financial statements for WESELPA and the school districts. I just have drawn an interest to this, and also on this report that you've listed here, those numbers that are listed on the left side, are those general ledger accounts, or what numbers are those?
Yes,
They're the income.
They're part of the account structure, the SACS account structure that defines what the program is for.
Are they on the chart of accounts? Are they just, they are on the chart of accounts? Okay. Is it possible that you are available to answer questions if we were to call and ask for more detailed information? Because I definitely couldn't, figure out a lot of questions that could come about at this moment. But I know in reviewing this, I may have questions. Are you available to answer questions?
Yes.
Yes? Awesome. Do you have a business card with you? Okay, I'll come up and get it. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Brown.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I didn't see.
Janet, I just wanted to ask really quick on the fee-for-service. You mentioned that the admin costs are spread around among all the programs here. Is that spread amongst all the SELPAs, based on FTEs?
There's two different methods on this, Carolyn. First of all, the central office, Assistant Superintendent Sharon Burla and her staff, is spread across all student services programs, juvenile hall, community day, as I mentioned earlier. But the portion that is assigned to West in special education, then there's a second phase, because then that portion then is distributed across the categories here. So each category gets a piece of the admin costs that are assigned to West in operations.
Okay, so you assign a percentage of her to each of the different SELPAs?
Yeah.
And as well as her department?
Right, not just SELPAs, all programs that are under student services.
And I'm glad that we're just discussing the concept and not the actual fee for service. But one other question then is, because of the fact that the districts are paying for these costs and the distribution is separated between all of the SELPAs, are there additional costs when we're presented with these fee for services and you outline the staffing that's assigned? Is that administration department listed out as well?
Yes.
Increases in costs or anything from year to year?
First of all, that seems to be a two-part question, but the first part is, in the fiscal oversight, yes, I did bring the schedule of admin distribution across all programs and how we calculated and the positions that are spread across. And that was seen by the secretary. And then, I'm sorry, your second question was?
Just in regards to the staffing and costs by the individual department and what increases occur on an annual basis. Did the fiscal department, fiscal committee get to see that
Yes, they
information?
did see it. And it's broken down by supply costs and then salaries, and the assumptions that are applied to salaries.
And then the only thing I want to talk about in regards to the concept is I want to ensure that costs are contained as much as possible, because as you know, as everybody knows, districts are really squeezed for funding, and we want to be sure as well that the county office and the costs that we're paying for, which is 100% of these costs, are being distributed to all the school sites, that costs are contained as much as possible as the districts. And I know we're in the middle. I mean, we've got children that need support, which we're totally in support of, and then we have the county office, so we're kind of in the middle, having to deal with both sides as far as, providing services as well as covering all the costs. So we just want to make sure that that's part of the concept as far as, anything.
And it is, I actually should have put that as one of the objectives, is to get, I think that was good.
Very good. There's a second part to this presentation. The Oversight Committee was to develop a model for fee-for-service rates. The Terre School District developed a cost model for special day class programs and one-on-one aid services.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Phil Hillman. I'm the Chief Financial Officer over at Ontario Montclair. And this too will be my YouTube debut.
Not true.
Let's talk through, there will be a little duplication with what Janet talked about, but let's talk through the basic concepts of fee-for-service. The goal as a provider district is to capture the costs for providing kids out of your district that are coming to your district for services. And this was identified in the July 2010 FICMAT study. The major points they made are transparency within these billings, and that there was an oversight committee to review the fee-for-service rates, and there was also program advisory and financial advisory involvement in this. One of the things also was that if a provider district is providing services, the concept would be that their costs are reimbursed back at 100%. In other words, why would they run a program if there wasn't cost reimbursement for those programs? So as we go forward, some of the challenges of excess cost billings are that there's some science, some arts, a little of both. Should our regional method be the same as the county method? And I'll get into differences there in a moment. I've seen several different excess cost calculations or unreimbursed cost calculations, fee for service. And there's multiple ways of preparing these. Some can be based on pupil-teacher ratio. Some are based on account coding, chart of account coding, as Janet identified with the county. Some are a combination of both. I haven't seen very many WESELPAs have alike or identical calculations for fee for service. So there are multiple ways to calculate the fee for service. As we talk through some of the cost considerations in the billing itself, there are several categories, and I'll identify where the differences are with the county. As Janet pointed out, they have no resident kids. So everybody they serve are from out of district, so to speak. So they have a little easier time, I guess, identifying solid costs and then dividing that by the number of pupils they serve and can send a bill out. Now that's different for Ontario Montclair or any other provider district that does fee for service. And the reason that is because not only do we have a provider program that serves out of district kids, that provider program also serves our own kids, but then on top of that we also have kids that are in the special education program that are not in the provider program that are being served as well. So it makes the cost capture a little more difficult in that regard. Let's talk through some of these cost considerations. The classroom teachers and aides is the most straightforward part of the fee-for-service calculation. Because basically you can identify pretty easily who the teachers and aides are within the provider program. So they're separate from those that are not in the provider program. So we capture 100% of those costs for the teachers and aides. On the direct pupil support, it's a little bit different because you've got some, say, nurses and psychologists who could cross the three areas. They could serve kids within the provider program, out-of-district kids, in-district kids, but then also serve those kids that are out of the provider program as well. So how do you divide up those costs? Well, what we've done is attempted to, and it's difficult, but what we've done is we've polled, say, the nurses and psychologists and said, can you break down your time? Give me an estimate on time on, how much time you spend within the provider program and out of the provider program. And we feel like they've come up with reasonable estimates for us, and we built that into the billing. So what that means is that if a nurse spends 30% of her time in the provider program, 30% of the cost would then be built into the fee-for-service model, and the other 70% would not be. It's difficult for them, though, because it's, as a day goes by, it's difficult to track that time down to the minute. And so we're asking for our best estimates. It's akin to maybe a principal saying, how much time do you spend on your second graders? It's difficult to make that determination. Support staff is similar when we've got principal, assistant principal, program specialists. We do a similar thing. We've polled them and said, how much time do you spend on the provider program and out of the provider program? As we go through the billing review, which would be Catalina and the committee that will review the billings, that data will be available. I mean, that's not, our goal is to have everything laid out that says, here's how we came up with these costs. So I don't think there's going to be any mystery as to what is in the billing. And so Catalina, I know, will do probably an initial review, and then it'll go to the committee for review as well. And we've already, just so you know, the committee has already looked at some numbers that we've presented. But as Janet said, we haven't finalized our cost billing as of yet. We plan to next month. So similar allocation methods. Some of the other costs outside of the salaries and benefits area are a books and supplies allocation. OMSD uses $500 per classroom, a flat allocation. And then we also have the indirect costs, which are the general admin costs that are outside of the direct special education costs. Just so you know, what I've described so far is really the SAI, or the basic classroom setting costs. There are also those one-to-one aides, which are billed directly. So if a pupil has a one-to-one aide that is in a provider program, they would get billed directly to the district of residence. We also have the designated instructional services, the DIS services. In our case, the primary ones are the adaptive PE and the speech. Those are, what we're looking at is basically a pupil caseload for all those APE services and doing a prorated share of those APE services and billing those as part of the bill. But those are separate from the billing that I just talked about a second ago. So there's the SDC bill, there's the one-to-one aid bill, and then there's the DIS services bill. Not included in the FFS calculations are the facilities and legal, which is really run through the WESELPA. If a district sends a pupil to our district, of course, we get to claim the revenue credit for that, specifically revenue limit and some of the other revenue credits affiliated with special education. And so what we do is if we get the actual revenue from the state, we would give credit back on our bill similar to the way the county did. And so these are the three main categories of revenue that would give you credit back on the bill. So as we look at sample billing for 100 pupils, and again, there would be much more detail that would accompany something like this. This might be a summary page of the bill, but we would have a list, not necessarily the teachers' names, but all the teachers associated with the program and their salaries and benefits. So you could have an idea of what it's costing per pupil. But aides, the direct services, the direct pupil services, the pupil support, admin support, books and supplies, all of this would have detail behind it, so Catalina, the committee, could review it and say, challenge it, question it. That's, I think, the goal is to have, transparency. So what we've got then is a subtotal of all the costs above. We back out the revenue credits generated by the provider program to get down to a net cost, and then that net cost will be divided by the number of pupils in the program. So if you have 10 pupils in the program, you would be billed 10 times 12,150. Okay. Like I say, this would be kind of a summary page almost, with detail to back it up. As far as pupil counts go, the WESELPA has a standard on pupil counts. The pupils are counted twice a year, December 1 and April 1, and then those are averaged to come up with a final adjusted billing. So that's the pupil count side. And then the average daily attendance, I think most of us are familiar with at ADA, the average daily attendance. And it's a standard calculation, and it would be used for the revenue credits I talked about a minute ago. So in summary, the goal of our excess cost calculation is to provide transparency. So we want detailed calculations, couched in some policy procedure or committee-based process. It should be challenged by all the parties, but settled quickly if we can. But also sound business relationships, because what we want to do is if we're taking on kids from out of district, I think it's fair that we should be reimbursed and it not be a financial burden to our district. But we also feel like there should be financial value, of course, to the user districts when they come into our district. So I think there's a give and take there. But also we wanted a sustainable calculation, so when we come up with numbers from year to year and you go to budget, you have some idea that this is going to be a fairly consistent process year to year. There's not a lot of ups and downs. That's the goal as well, to have a sustainable process. Real brief, this was the fourth of 4 PowerPoint presentations in a row. I felt like I was back in college. But any questions regarding the OMSD model? And again, this is conceptual, and the detail will be fleshed out a little bit more when we get to the committee.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.